and welcome to Education Matters. I'm your host, Joy Hoffmeister. As Superintendent of Public Instruction for Oklahoma, I'm thrilled to join forces with OETA for this opportunity to visit with you about public education across our state. Today we'll be discussing the importance of parent, family, and community engagement from the classroom to the state capitol. I believe collaboration is key to achieving excellence, and that collaboration depends on real and meaningful engagement. With education a hot topic in the state and at the Capitol with the legislative session just beginning, we are excited to talk from a perspective of parents and educators as well as students. It's time to speak up and speak out because your voice does matter. So joining me now is Melissa Abdo. Melissa is on the Jenks Public School Board as well as a member of the Parent Legislative Action Committee, PLAC, which began many years ago. And welcome, Melissa.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Some exciting things happening. I'm very curious how you got started, and tell us a little bit about what's developed at a state level for parents who are wanting to be engaged.
Okay. Well, it is an exciting time for education in Oklahoma, and PLAC began, probably 20 years ago as an idea when the former superintendent of Jenks Public Schools would go over to the Capitol, Dr. Kirby Lehman, and talk with lawmakers. And they said to him, "We want to hear from parents." And so that's really how the idea began. He went back to the district, and as he was visiting with parent groups, started asking for volunteers. Does anybody want to come over to the Capitol? And over a period of years, that group kind of became more organized and started making formal trips to the Capitol. And then about 10 years ago, I became involved when our oldest child started kindergarten at Jenks. So I thought, we've got a long road ahead of us, and it's a good time to get involved. And so it's been really great to see the evolution. PLAC is a nonpartisan group, and we have a mission to inform and engage parents and community on the education legislation that affects our schools.
So this is really how you and I met.
Right.
We were both Jenks parents, and this was an introduction for me to get to know our school leaders, our district leaders, and also learn a little bit about these bills and action at the Capitol that would directly impact our kids in the classrooms in our own schools. So it's kind of an exciting start.
It really is.
For many
and
people.
It's funny because of course, you're now state superintendent, and we also have people who are involved in their local PLACs that go on to run for school board, like myself. We have several other school board members, people who have run for legislative office. So it really is a great start for people who are interested in learning more about how the systems work and how the bills impact our schools. And it often can be a launching pad to other things.
Yeah, so when I became state school superintendent, one of the things I had hoped would happen is that more school districts would meet together like we were doing in the Tulsa area with PLAC, and it was many different school districts kind of collaborating together, bringing those legislators in, having conversations regularly, as well as meeting to stay on top of those various topics that would impact our kids in our own schools. But we've seen now something exciting that's occurring where many of these are kind of forming in different parts of the state, and even a statewide initiative. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. It is exciting. I think there are about 12 local chapters right now of PLAC, and they represent urban, rural, suburban school communities. And so earlier this year in January, we announced the Oklahoma PLAC, which is kind of a statewide umbrella that will really let us share resources, share ideas, and then join together for some common messaging around supporting strong public education for our state and for our kids.
That's excellent. And did you mention it's bipartisan?
It's bipartisan, we use nonpartisan.
Okay.
And I think that's really, really important because education, if there's an issue that we can all agree on to get behind, it's having quality public education for our students and for the future of our state. So we emphasize that. Everything that we talk about is, you know, the idea of strong schools isn't a Republican issue or a Democratic issue, and as far as the parents are concerned, it's an issue that we all agree on.
Yeah, and so I think also there's a lot of family members who are acquainted with PTA, which has a very important role in supporting not just the teacher in a classroom and that partnership between parents, but also can participate. Members of PTA can also be part of the Parent Legislative Action Committee, or PLAC.
Yeah, they can, and it's really important. I think that speaks to why this is necessary, because we know that the parent is so important. At the local, at the school level, we do all these things: help with homework, volunteer in the classroom, make sure that we're supporting fundraisers and school activities, and all of that is great. And so we don't see it as an either or. This is just an opportunity for people who are really interested in learning more and kind of a deeper dive on legislative issues. And you know, the parent is so important at this local level that it just makes sense to us that parent feedback would be important at the state level when we're talking about policies that affect schools.
Well, it all matters, and whether you're a parent, a teacher, a retired educator, a grandparent, or someone that's retired after years of business service and in industry who want to be a part of helping improve education, there are ways to get engaged in small ways, in large ways, but there is a way to get engaged. So we know volunteering makes an important difference in the lives of kids, but it can also help with those connections at the Capitol.
Oh, it absolutely can. And we understand that not everybody has the time or, you know, can make trips over to the Capitol. So we have the groups across the state are hosting advocacy events where they're really teaching people whatever time you have in your life, you can do something, whether that is how do you reach out to a lawmaker, make a phone call, let them know that, you know, that you support strong quality education, and all the way up to going to the Capitol with us during session. So there's something for everyone, but what we're encouraging is for everybody to take a step and engage.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. So let's keep the conversation going and bring in two crucial voices within every school, a teacher and student. One thing I'm most proud of in my first 4 years in office is the creation of our Student Advisory Council, consisting of high school juniors and seniors from all corners of the state. This dynamic group provides an absolutely critical perspective and voice.
I would want to equalize it.
My school is size class A, and so there's some things that we aren't being able to offer that aren't offered at our school that I would like to see.
I'd find a way to help middle schoolers try to get more involved.
I'd like to have more college courses offered.
There's lots of opportunities in bigger schools and schools that are in better neighborhoods and higher income communities. They have a lot more opportunity than other communities. If you're not involved in middle school, you don't get involved in high school. And if you're not involved in high school, you're definitely not prepared for college.
So I'd like to make it more challenging for the students. Probably the teachers' pay, which sounds really typical, but I think our teachers do so much for us. I seriously cannot express how much my teachers have changed my education just through my high school careers.
I would like to see our schools be a little bit more intentional. Preparedness from 6th grade to 12th grade on the career you would want.
I think there could always be more of it, you know, hands-on and career exploration.
Being able to look into my field of my suggested field of work and being able to just apply myself and learn more about that field.
I feel like Oklahoma is a great state that needs to be seen as more important and start producing students that are going to make changes in the world and make Oklahoma seen as a very strong state in this nation.
Christian Coleman was a member of our Student Advisory Council representing Millwood Public Schools, which is here in Oklahoma City, for 3 years. Now he is a freshman at the University of Central Oklahoma. And Jessica Robinson is a high school teacher in Altus and was one of 12 finalists for the 2019 Oklahoma State Teacher of the Year. Thank you both for joining us, Christian and Jessica. And Christian, you were a part of that advisory council. Thank you so much for all that you did to bring the student voice to the conversation. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of being an engaged student?
Well, first I want to thank you for having me. Being an engaged student here in the state of Oklahoma, to me, was something of great importance. I saw that around my high school and around my community and even around the state, high school students weren't involved in understanding kind of what was going on at the Capitol level and even at the state level. And for me, one person can make a change. And I thought that if that one person was going to be anyone, it had to be me or others who are on the advisory council. Mm-hmm. So just being involved and on the council, understanding that I can effectively reach my peers better than a lot of other avenues and other ways was really important. And being that bridge to other students is very vital to continuing to inform our students about things that are going on around the state.
So I'm curious, do you find that students are more connected to what's going on at the national level? Are they even, is it like on their radar with what's happening at the state level, or maybe that's changed?
I would definitely say the national level, news on the national level is a lot more accessible to students than even on the state or more importantly on the local level. You can get on Twitter or social media and find anything happening in Washington, D.C. or New York, but as far as things happening in Broken Arrow or Oklahoma City or Tulsa, you would have to dig a little deeper to find information like that. So I would definitely say national news and things happening on a broad scale is a lot more known about in the teenage and community.
Yeah. So I'm curious also, at the Student Advisory, you were introduced with those who represent you at the Capitol. I know sometimes folks are not acquainted or haven't built a relationship or even know the name of the state senator or state representative. Did you have a chance to get to meet those who represent you?
I had a lot of opportunities to come in contact with these individuals, and the relationships and connections that I built through the advisory council last on to today. Some of my closest mentors and people that I look up to for advice on or information about things that are going on around the state are in that Capitol building or just finished their terms in the Capitol building. It's super important, and I want students to know that these individuals are regular human beings. They're just like you and I speaking together here on this TV. A lot of times they can seem big and scary just because the title they hold, but they're typical human beings, Oklahomans that love their state and love their people.
Yeah, well, so speaking of building relationships, Jessica, you were successful in having a number of the gubernatorial candidates visit your classroom. How did you do that?
Well, social media really is how it started. I had a student tell me that a candidate running for governor was nearby. And being in rural Oklahoma, we're in southwest Oklahoma, and sometimes I think our kids can feel disconnected more so because proximity, But I said, well, let's see if they'll come by, So we reached out to Governor Stitt, and he couldn't make it that day, but he was very accommodating about trying to find a time that he could come, and he was really our first candidate to come by our class. And when you talk about students being involved and seeing themselves in politics, it's a game changer, because seeing him in the classroom and them being able to interact, they don't just think, that they are being heard, they are being heard, and they are given that opportunity to ask questions and say what's important to them. And so that really got the ball rolling. And so we asked the rest of the candidates to come, and 3 others were able to make it to the class. And it was completely such a different experience for them because they had met the candidates. They felt like these are nice people, you know, just like my parents or my grandparents. And, you know, I think it really was an outstanding experience for them to be able to have, you know, in the classroom, for sure. And so many of them are so engaged now, and we're so invested in the process because of it.
So that's interesting. You mentioned social media. How has social media made for greater connection with that level of engagement? I'm curious.
I just think there's more transparency, you know, and it's so accessible for our students and ourselves. And I think that, you know, I've seen an effort in this new administration, even in Oklahoma. I've seen the governor more active on social media than I've seen in the past, in a more kind of accessible way. And I think that speaks to our young people in a way that is very authentic to us and to our students, because that's where they're engaging so often.
When you mention authenticity, I think that's really important, because a lot of times students or young people can feel that we're in this big world and we're not being met where we are. And when getting people, when easing people into a process or understanding what's going on around the state, we have to be met where we are. And like you mentioned, social media, it definitely does that for my generation.
I wanted to ask Christian, when you were talking about students engaging in national level more so than on the state level, did you notice a difference? I did at Jinx definitely last year during the teacher walkout, when with our students being engaged, and that was something that very definitely affected them, and you know they weren't able to go to school. So did you notice students being more engaged during that period of time?
That was a great time for students who weren't involved. Me being involved, I saw students that I always saw in the same realm at the Capitol in leadership opportunities. But at the same time, I saw more students who weren't as involved in those arenas, but they still had the same message and the same drive as students who were always involved. And I think that demonstration allowed or opened the door for a lot more students who weren't involved to pay attention here locally a lot more.
That's great.
Before we move on, I want to share a segment from the State Department of Education's ongoing series called Shaped My Life. Here's U.S. Representative Tom Cole, who incidentally once was a college professor, talking about the teacher who made a huge impact on his life and career.
My favorite teacher was a lady by the name of Joan Hoffman. And Joan was very un-Oklahoman. She was from New Jersey. Her husband was at the University of Oklahoma pursuing a doctorate in psychology. And she was teaching to help put him through college. And she taught world history and American history. She wasn't much older than the rest of us. I was 15 and 16. She would have been about 22. So she was sort of like us, It was people. She was a very cool teacher, tremendous sense of humor, excellent at engaging people, and really opened the world to me. It made me think about possibilities beyond what I'd ever thought. And she was transformational to me. Now, I lost track of her because she went back to New Jersey. All of a sudden, once I was chairman of the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee in a tough year in 2007, 2008, and the New York Times Magazine wrote a story about this challenging environment and this guy that was doing this job. And all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, here comes this postcard to my office, handwritten, and the opening question was, "Is this my Tom Cole?" And it was Joan Hoffman. She had read the article. It's been one of the great joys of my life to have the opportunity 40 years later to reestablish contact. One of those spectacular teachers that you're very fortunate to have. It is a very special calling and a very wonderful, wonderful way to serve your state and your country.
In large part, I think engagement is about changing the narrative of public education in Oklahoma. We need to make it clear that our teachers are appreciated and that we are grateful for their expertise and leaning on that expertise as we move forward. So now we know that this past spring, teachers brought the stories of the children in their classrooms to the Capitol to meet face-to-face with those who represent them there and to share those stories. How did that affect you, and any thoughts around continued engagement?
For me personally, seeing those teachers at the Capitol, it gave me a sense of hope and pride that, you know, people still do have the power to let their voices be heard. And as a student, seeing my teachers who educate me, seeing their pain, their struggle, you know, really standing up for themselves was really important to me, and showing and reassured me that, you know, education really is something that pushes the status quo and that pushes society forward. So for me as a student, seeing that, it really struck home to me.
Yeah. And to Christian's point, I mean, I've never felt so supported as from my students and from parents as during that time. You know, I felt like what we were doing mattered on behalf of our kids, but also our communities. And I think that I had some students even come with, you know, us to the Capitol, and to actually be able to, you know, talk to our legislators with our kids, with our parents, was a really, you know, I think illuminating experience for everyone involved, and I hope increase their engagement overall, you know, in terms of that.
So Jessica, as a teacher and having long rides back on a bus or in a vehicle with your colleagues, what were some of the things that teachers said that were their takeaways?
I think just the connections they made. I mean, some people, I was shocked, had never been to the Capitol, you know, didn't know the way around. And for me, you know, I teach government, so it wasn't, you know, outside the box for me, but going and actually meeting with people, having face-to-face conversations is so different than sending an email or a call. You know, the in-person connection is so different. I think I saw a lot of political apathy maybe before the walkout in April, and afterwards I've seen so much more engagement, so many more people being invested in the process and the elections, and I think that that's the greatest takeaway is more engagement from our communities and parents, you know, students, and knowing the importance of their vote and that it matters, and that, you know, they need to make connections with their legislators in productive and healthy ways, you know.
I think we noticed that with parents as well. You know, Christian mentioned it was a great opportunity for people who hadn't previously been engaged to really connect, and because the issue was so personal to so many people. So we saw a lot of parents engaging for the first time and learning who their lawmakers are. And then, you know, what followed was an election cycle. And so I think we had more people interested in getting to know candidates. And again, what we do is not about being partisan or telling people how to vote, but providing opportunities for them to meet all the candidates. And so then they feel more informed when they go and make the decision on who they're going to support.
So what are some lessons learned on being effective now that we have 57 new legislators, a new governor, lieutenant governor? How is it that engagement during the legislative session can be productive?
I think being positive, staying positive is key. I mean, Christian mentioned that they are real people, legislators are real people, and so trying to build that relationship and you know, ask your legislator how they prefer to be contacted, because this is a really busy time and they are inundated with emails and phone calls, and so, you know, that's a personal decision for so many of them, and some may prefer text, some may prefer email, but that's an easy first conversation to have.
So that makes me think also of our Okla Ed chat on Twitter, where a lot of people come together that are elected officials, that are parents, and as well as students, pre-service teachers, a whole variety of educators, superintendents, on Sunday nights at 8 p.m., hashtag Okla Ed, and join us for that conversation. But I think that there's also things we learn from having gone through this as a student, as a teacher. And Jessica, you teach social studies and civic engagement. Any tips that you can leave us with?
I think that, you know, as you mentioned, being positive, but, you know, you always want to lead with positivity, with love, and with kindness, and I think that's what we try to teach our students. But we want to engage with lawmakers the same way as we do each other, and I think that has a ripple effect, and I hope that's the future for Oklahoma going forward.
I think there was a real breakthrough. It felt to me, this legislative session feels different, and it feels like we have students and parents and educators and lawmakers and our governor all talking and agreeing that education is a priority for our state, and it feels like we are ready to do this together.
As a student, it almost feels like a fresh start or like a reboot. I mean, I've been in public education for my entire high school career, and now moving into my college career, just knowing that the system that funds and supports us is moving in the right direction, it reassures me that my education is valued. And as a student, I think when students value their education and value that they're being looked at and that they matter, I think they'll excel in the classroom.
Great. Thank you, Jessica, Christian, and Melissa for joining us today. Your voice matters, and we look forward to your leadership in helping teachers, students, and families stay engaged. So we would love hearing from you as viewers. If you have a topic that you would like to see discussed on Education Matters, or if you would like additional information on anything we've talked about today, send us an email at educationmatters@sde.ok.gov. Now, my school spotlight this month. Ada Public Schools. Ada's aviation program is inspiring students to explore STEM careers. Ada Schools is one of 29 school districts in the country selected to test aviation curriculum. Through a partnership with the Ada Municipal Airport, students are getting hands-on experiences in the aviation industry. Sixth graders are learning the parts of a plane, while high school students honed their skills on a flight simulator, some even getting to be a passenger on a Young Eagle flight. Great work, Ada Schools, and the sky's the limit truly for what you can do. Thank you. So that does it for us, and we'll be back to see you next time for more Education Matters.